Okay, this is my first time ever playing Stardew Valley, so I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. So while I try to figure everything out, I'll also be reading some of the scariest true stories I've found on Reddit. So let's get started. Okay, so this one's titled Paranormal Experience as a Paramedic. Encounter. I work as a paramedic, and up until recently, I didn't believe in ghosts or spirits. I got a call around 10 p.m. at night. Concern for welfare happens all the time, usually in warden-controlled properties, as they have falls all the time. My colleague wanted to live stream her kids before bed, so I said I'd go into the property on my Todd and I'll call her if I needed backup. I knocked on the door, met by an old man who asked why I was there and said he pressed his care call alarm by mistake. I asked if he wanted checking over, to which he responded he had issues with his blood pressure, so may as well while I was there. Directly from the front door was the bedroom. The light was on and there was a woman sat up in the bed. She looked at me but didn't say anything. I assumed she had dementia, so I just left her to it. We walked into the lounge and I did my assessment. After my assessment, we got into small talk. Whether, what he used to do for a living, etc. I then asked him about his wife, how long they had been together. He responded they had been together for 40 plus years before she sadly passed away 4 years ago. I then apologized and said at least it was nice he had another woman to share his bed with. He then responded back, "What woman? I live here alone." I was like, "So who was the woman in his bed?" He then replied, "Fucked if I know, mate." I asked if he could show me a picture of his missus, and I shit you not, there she was. The woman, albeit a bit younger in the picture with him. I walked out of the room and looked in the room again. She wasn't there. I couldn't wait to get the fuck out of that house. I then proceeded to be dead silent for the rest of my shift, so much that my colleague went to management as she thought I was totally out of character and that I was suffering with PTSD. She didn't believe me when I told her the story. Someone said, "That's a great sighting. The one I had was the same. The person looked like they were really there, not a wispy ghost, solid and real." That's insane. Did you tell the patient you saw his wife? How'd he react? Okay, OP is responding. I mentioned there was a lady that looked a lot like his wife in his bed, and he just looked at me like I'd gone a bit mad, but I'll be honest, I was that spooked. I just wanted to gather my equipment and go. I kinda just played it off as a must be going insane moment. Honestly, it took a lot to post this here because other than a few people at work who I trust, I'm worried my other colleagues would think I was loopy. It certainly changed my outlook on the whole subject though. That I can say for certain. My dad told me not to go outside that night. Jason, don't talk about this much. My wife knows the short version. My buddies from high school know there's a version of this story, but I've never actually told it start to finish. Not even to my dad, and he was there for the worst part of it. I grew up on a corn and soybean farm about 40 minutes outside Cedar Falls, Iowa, on a stretch of a county road that doesn't even show up right on GPS half of the time. Our closest neighbor, the Hendricksons, was almost 3 miles down the road. My mom died of ovarian cancer when I was 12, so from then on in, it was just me and my dad in the farmhouse. He worked the fields, I went to school, and in the fall, I rode my bike to football practice because he was usually out working until dark and couldn't drive me. I'm telling you all this because I need you to understand that being alone outside at night wasn't unusual for me. I did it all the time. I biked 2 miles home from practice in the pitch dark more times than I can count. It never bothered me. My dad never once told me not to. until that one night in September of my sophomore year. I remember it was a late September because we just finished the second cutting on the hay and the beans were still green, not ready for harvest yet. I got home from practice around 8, put my bike in the shed like always, and when I walked in the house, my dad was standing in the kitchen instead of sitting at the table like usual. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there. He said, "Don't go outside tonight, not even to the shed, not even for your bike. I mean it." I asked him why. He just said, "Just don't." His voice wasn't angry, it was flat in a way I'd never heard from him. My dad was not a nervous guy. He'd worked that land his whole life, dealt with coyotes getting into the chicken coop, dealt with tornado warnings, dealt with burying his own wife. Nothing rattled him. So when he told me that and wouldn't explain it, it stuck with me more than if he yelled. I didn't push it. I ate dinner, I did some homework, and around 11, I couldn't sleep. So I got up for a glass of water. My room faced the back of the house towards the field. We had 4 sodium floodlights on poles out there. The kind that buzz a little and throw this orange-yellow light in patches. My dad kept them on at night because we'd been having trouble with deer, and that summer something that had been getting into the grain bins that he never did identify. I looked out my window like I always did, not thinking about anything. And that's when I saw something standing in the field. It was maybe 400 yards out, past the second light pole, in one of those gaps where the light barely reached. Most of the bean field was just black, but there was this one patch, lit orange from the pole, and there was a person standing dead center in it, not moving. I want to be clear about something. From that distance, at night, under sodium light, you can't see color right. Sodium lights wash everything into this orange-brown. But this person looked wrong, even accounting for that. The color on them wasn't just orange from the light. It was darker in patches, almost rust-colored, like something had dried on their skin or their clothes. I remember thinking it looked like they'd been out in the mud, or maybe it was just work coveralls stained up from field work, which honestly wouldn't have been that strange around here. I watched for probably a full minute, telling myself it was nothing. Maybe Hendrickson's boy messing around, maybe some hunter who wandered into our land, which happens sometimes even though we didn't allow it. Then, the figure lifted one arm, slow, and waved me towards it. Not a big wave, just one motion. Arm up, hand open, and then it went still again. It didn't call out. It didn't move any closer to the light. It just stood there after that, like it was waiting to see what I'd do. I know how this sounds. I know the smart thing was to wake my dad up right then. But I was 15, and I told myself it might be somebody who actually needed help. Maybe somebody's car broke down in the country road. I didn't let myself think too hard about the alternative. I put on my shoes and went out the back door quiet. Not through the front where my dad might hear the screen door. The night was warm still, that late September Iowa warm, where the air feels thick even after dark. I could hear crickets and somewhere off towards the Hendricksons, a dog barking at something, on and off. My legs felt fine walking the first 100 yards or so, right up until I got past our own grain bin, and the ground dipped down into the field proper, and I started sweating in a way that had nothing to do with the temperature. The bean rows are only about knee-high that time of year, so I could see over them fine. But once I got in among them, the sound changed completely. Up by the house, the wind moving through the beans just sound like wind. Once you're inside it, walking through it, every gust sounds like something is moving through the rows near you, and not always in the direction the wind is actually blowing. I kept stopping because I'd hear a rustle off to my left, and then a second later, one off to my right, closer than it should have been able to get that fast. I told myself it was rabbits, We had plenty of rabbits in that field, so I tell myself that. I lost sight of the figure for a stretch because I dropped into a low part of the field, and when I came back up, I couldn't find the patch of light I had been walking toward. Everything looked the same in every direction. 4 floodlights all throwing the same orange glow into different empty rows. And for a second, I genuinely didn't know which way the house was behind me. I kept walking anyway. I don't know why. My legs just carried me forward like they'd already decided something my head hadn't agreed to yet. And then, without me really understanding how, I was standing right where the figure had been. There was nobody there, just an empty patch of bean rows and one of those strange circular flattened spots in the dirt, like the plants had been pressed down and stayed that way. The hair-thin stalks around the edge of it were bent and snapped in a way that didn't look like wind damage or deer damage. It looked broken by hand, almost deliberate, like something had pushed the stalks down one at a time instead of trampling through. My eyes started to go strange on me right about then. Not blurry like I was about to cry, more like the edges of everything got soft. The way things look right before you fall asleep sitting up. I remember thinking that was wrong, that I should have been more scared than I was, and not being able to make myself feel it the way I should have. That's when a hand landed on my shoulder from behind, like it was trying to pull me backwards. I spun around fast, and my dad was standing right there. The second I saw his flashlight beam swing across my face, it was like something let go of me. I came back to myself all at once. The way you do when you wake up out of a dream you didn't know you were having. He didn't yell. He grabbed my hand and held it so tight it actually hurt. And I remember that more than almost anything else from that night. Because my dad never grabbed me like that. Not once in my life. Not even when I was little and about to run into the road. He didn't say much, just told me quiet that he told me not to come out here. I looked back towards that flattened circle before he pulled me away. There was a stone sitting right in the middle of it, wedged down between the broken stalks. It was smooth, almost polished, like something you'd find in a riverbed, except we don't have a river anywhere near that field. Never have. It was dark red, and the red wasn't just on the stone. It looked like it had bled out a little around the edges into the dirt, like the color belonged to more than just the rock itself. I bent down without really thinking about it, reaching for the stone, and my dad yanked my hand back so hard I nearly lost my footing. He didn't explain, he just started walking straight towards the house, fast, not looking left or right, not looking behind us even once. I kept feeling like something was moving along behind us in the dark, being just far enough back that I couldn't be sure. And I think my dad felt it too because he didn't slow down until we were through the back door and he'd thrown the deadbolt. Once we were inside, I asked him what that was. He told me again in the same heavy voice that he'd said not to go out there. He wasn't angry. I could hear something else in it, something closer to fear, like he was more scared of what almost happened to me than he was of whatever was actually out there. I asked him 2 or 3 more times over the next few days. He never gave me a real answer. That night, neither of us slept. I know because I could hear him in the kitchen at 2 in the morning and again at 4. I'd never heard him up like that, not even the week my mom died. The next morning, walking to catch the bus, I ran into Mr. Hendrickson at the end of our driveway. He didn't waste time on hello. He just asked me straight out why there'd be screaming coming from our place the night before. I told him it was probably an animal. I could see in his face that he didn't believe me for a second, but he didn't push it either. A few days after that, maybe 3, I don't remember exactly, I woke up early and heard my dad's voice out by the gate, talking to someone I didn't recognize. He was telling the man he wanted to sell the property, all of it, the house and the land both. He didn't want me hearing it because the second I stepped outside, he stopped talking mid sentence. I asked him about it later that day. First, he told me I shouldn't be listening in on his conversations. Then, after a while, he said it different. He said something like we couldn't keep running the place by ourselves anymore, and that whatever we got for the land, we'd move into town, maybe get a little shop somewhere easier. I didn't ask any more questions after that. It felt like there was a reason under the reason, and I think some part of me already understood. He didn't want to say it out loud. Maybe because he didn't want to lose me the way he almost had that night. We moved into town before the year was out. He's 65 now. I don't bring up that night with him anymore because the last few times I tried, he just said he doesn't remember it clearly. I know that's not true. I've never believed that's true. I still wonder what that was, standing out there in the light. I wonder if my father saw it too, the same way that I did, or if he only knew enough to be afraid of it. And I wonder more than anything, what would have happened if I'd pick up that stone before he got to me, or if he'd been 30 seconds slower walking out that back door. Some nights it still gets to me, thinking about it. I don't have an answer. I don't think I ever will. KOP made an edit after posting. Edit. I honestly didn't expect this many people to read my story. Thank you to everyone who's taken the time to read it and leave a comment. A lot of you have suggested that I should go back. What? The more I've thought about it, the more I feel like I need to. Excuse me? If the Hendricksons are still around, I want to talk to them. I also want to talk to other people who still live out there and see if anything like this ever happened to them or anyone in their family. I've been thinking about putting everything together in one place. Not just my own story, but the whole trip back. The people I meet and the stories they're willing to share. I want to take my time and do it properly, even if it takes a while. Okay, I respect that. The only thing I'm worried about is that this post has already been removed once. If I spend months putting everything together and it ends up getting removed again, all that work could be gone. So, I'd really like to hear your opinion. Should I keep sharing everything here and take that risk? Or would it make more sense to put it all together somewhere else first? I'd really appreciate your thoughts. There's an interesting top comment here. It says, scary but bewildering. He may have encountered things while working in the field. OP replied to this saying, yes, I am absolutely sure that he knows what it was or what happened there. I will definitely go there again and talk to the people there about it. And if I get any information or come to know about any incident that happened to someone in their family, I will definitely share it. Stay with me. Are you sure? Are you sure about that? Are you sure? Okay, so this one is titled, Don't Fuck with Ouija Boards, y'all. No shit. So let's begin. This all really kicks off at a childhood friend's house. Let's call her Bella. In order to set the mood, I need to fill y'all in on the history of this house. In the late 60s, a husband walks in one night to find his wife in bed with another man. He shot both of them, and then himself, in what would later on become Bella's older sister's bedroom. Fast forward to when Belle's parents bought the house and found a newspaper article about the double murder-suicide while renovating the home. Well, fast forward a decade, and Bella's family made more renovation to the house. 3 giant black stains had penetrated the carpet and stained the wood floors, presumably from dried blood. They decided to keep the original wood, slapped a finish on it, and called it a day. They keep an area rug over the stains. There are a few other creepy incidents. Belongings go missing and suddenly reappear. Kitchen cabinets and drawers all open when no one's around to open them. Doors slamming, seeing doppelgangers, etc. Anyways, getting sidetracked with setting the scene. So, when we were 13 years old, Bella and I were sitting in the middle of her bedroom floor with the lights turned off, candle lit, and a Ouija board in between us. You know, being young and creepy. I had just lost my father a few years prior to cancer, and I was still grieving. I was angry at him that he left our family and trying to fill the father sized gaping hole in my heart at that time. Not the best state of mind to be in when you're playing Knock Knock Who's There with the spirits. We were ready to open up the portal of communication to God knows what in a fucking haunted house. This was never destined to turn out well. I mean, you don't buy Ouija boards in the first place, but moving on. We place our hands on the planchette and say, "Hello, spirits. We'd like to talk to you." I don't know how I feel about saying this in my house alone. I just want to note before my dad passed away, I've never been into anything supernatural or spooky. I still believe in God, went to church, and prayed for everyone I ever met in my entire life, including their animals. I was a sensitive kid in a few ways, and never watched anything too scary for fear or bad thoughts and nightmares. Then we got to asking our list of preteen girly questions for a bit. Eventually, they turned a bit more serious. Us. Is there something here with us? Bored. Yes. Us. Are you a good spirit? Bored. Maybe. Me. Are you my dad? I was desperate to make contact with my dad. Bored. No. Me. Do you know my dad? Bored. Yes. Me. Is he okay? Is he in heaven? Bored. Yes. I was starting to feel very uneasy, and it was like all my senses heightened at once. I got that oh fuck no feeling in the pit of my stomach, like someone or thing is watching you. Then I felt a heavy, dark, like pitch black with no light, pressure next to us. The goddamn bed squeaked like someone had sat down on it. I hesitantly looked over and saw an outline of where a human should be on the edge of the bed. I stared at it for what felt like a decade, trying to make sense of what I'm witnessing, when I snapped back into the moment and uttered a, "Oh hell no," hurtled over Bella, crossed the room, and slapped the lights on. I refused to play again and demanded we do something, fucking anything else. Pure fear and dread lingered deep in my gut, and the feeling of potentially being harmed was strong. We never closed the board out. Adult me understands the huge mistake, but at that time I was young, scared, and had no clue of the repercussions of not closing the session out. Looking back, I honestly believe this was the moment something attached itself to me and remains on in the periphery of my life. Later that evening, Bella and I settled down for the night into her bed with her trusty small poodle. Tiny snuggled with us. We were drifting off when Tiny started growling and barking at the foot of the bed at absolutely nothing, or so we thought. We calmed her down and soon Bella was out. I was unfortunately wide awake. I felt a presence at the foot of the bed. My gut sank and my heart started racing. I slowly pulled the blankets up over my head and willed myself to sleep and ignore the presence. It started creeping up my side of the bed until it felt like it was standing over me. It lingered there next to my head, just standing there. I eventually wore myself out with terror and fell asleep. That did not last long. My eyes snapped open as I heard the sound of a gun trigger pulled back and then off in my ear. Scared shitless, I shook Bella awake and asked her if she too heard the gun go off. She mumbled no and rolled back over. I cried myself to sleep, feeling trapped and full of dread, nowhere to go. Bella was used to spooky things happening in her house and didn't bat an eye when shit got weird. I, however, was not used to this level of activity and would spend hours after leaving her house wondering if what happened actually happened. Second story happens a few months later when I'm at a sleepover at another childhood friend's house. Let's call them Kit and Kat. Kit was their friend known to be very sensitive to spirits and would see them on almost a daily basis. Well, we were winding down for the night, and I volunteered to sleep on the air mattress since the bed would fit only two. I'm settled in and the lights go out when I hear a low guttural cackling in my ear. I had a weird sensation that someone was laying next to me with their face right next to mine. I tried to ignore the feeling of dread and pleaded with myself to fall asleep. The cackling kept up, so I begged Kit and Kat to let me up onto the bed with a distressed explanation that I had heard something on the floor. Once I was squished in the middle of the two girls, I started to calm down enough to attempt to sleep again. I'm laying on my side facing the wall that was illuminated by a blue light emitted by the alarm clock on the nightstand behind me. Then I see a shadow of a large hand wave at us in the light of the clock. All 5 fingers were perfectly visible, slowly waving back and forth. My heart dropped instantly with the thought that maybe I'm going crazy running through my head, checking to make sure neither of them were the ones doing it. I quietly nudged the two of them and pointed to the wall where they too saw the hand. I was coated in fear and sweat when Kit admits she saw someone sitting in the corner of the room but didn't want to freak us out. Well, that was a shit plan because we were all kind of freaking out at that point. I'm praying for the presence to leave us alone, but some part of me hoped it was my dad. The thought of if it really was him, you wouldn't be scared kept tugging at my common sense. Kit started to see and hear things. She whispered my nickname that my dad gave me. No one else knew it. And interlaced her fingers. Kit has very dainty hands and almost no upper body strength. She started to squeeze my fingers, causing my heart to race, and a knot formed in my stomach. Her hands felt like my father's large, rough, and strong hands. I started to cry so hard that my heart started to hurt. I deeply grieved my dad, but was also terrified shitless. The emotions and general pressure in the room was too much, so we decided to turn on the lights and stay up for as long as we could, talk about all the really weird and scary shit that just happened. Kit eventually got up and went to the bathroom and came back to leave Kat and I alone to chat. We were caught off guard when a set of beads hanging on the window frame fell on the ground, making us scream. We were jumpy to say the least. Almost at the same moment, Kit rushed in with something even more spooky to report. When she saw herself in the mirror, her face didn't look like her own. It was as if all her facial features were sunken in and she looked sick, like she had cancer. Then she watched as a large orange orb fell out from her head and her face faded back into her own. After hearing that, Kit and Kat went back to sleep while I watched the sun come up. I don't know about the orange orb falling out from her head. Moving on, I told my mom the next day what happened and she immediately asked if I used an Ouija board. I confessed to using it at Bella's house a while back. She scolded me and begged me to never ever use it again. She said they're dangerous and can leave doors to the spirit world open and make it easy for something unsavory to follow me. She explained that the spirit we had experienced during the sleepover with Kit and Kat was a bad spirit mimicking my father, and that is why I felt off and scared. After that, I had some pretty horrible night terrors. More stories for another time, and became terrified of my bedroom. It got so bad that I couldn't look into my mirror for fear someone would be behind me or be in my room alone, at all for that matter. On the daily, I was riddled with anxiety for the time of night I'd have to sleep again. I slept with my mom until I was about 16. However, she never minded it. After a while, mom helped me get back to normal existence. She cleansed my room with anointed oil and gave it a total makeover. It worked and I was able to sleep in my bedroom again. However, we hung up curtains to block off my built-in vanity to cover the mirror unless I needed it. I had very few night terrors after that and my anxiety lessens to a normal teenage amount. Years have now passed and now I'm 30. Throughout the years, I've had many more creepy encounters and would love to tell them another time. If y'all would like to hear more, but don't fuck with Ouija boards. OP commented under her post saying that the main concern with both interactions is a nefarious entity trying to mimic the spirit of my father. If it was him, I absolutely believe I would have felt calm and in awe, not full of terror and dread. Okay. Next story. This one is titled Something Terrifying Happened in My Childhood Home That My Entire Family Witnessed. Any explanations? I've never really told this story online before because I know it sounds unbelievable. But it's something that happened to my family when I was around 6 years old, and I'm genuinely curious what people think. I grew up in the Netherlands. We moved into a fairly new, modern terraced house when I was about 5 years old. Nothing strange happened at all for around a year and a half. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, things started happening. First thing I remember is having reoccurring dreams that someone was standing outside my bedroom, watching me through my bedroom door. My room was in the attic, and outside my room was just a small landing with the washing machine and family computer. My mom always told me I had an overactive imagination. Then we started noticing that every morning the washing machine door would be open and the clothes would be scattered across the landing. My mom would also hear footsteps coming from the attic during the night, but every time she checked, I would be fast asleep in bed. One night, my mom woke up and found me downstairs standing in front of the TV, staring at static in what she described as a trance. Looking back, I assume I must have been sleepwalking. After that, things escalated. The footsteps became much louder. My parents said they sounded like someone running up and down the stairs at night. Doors would begin opening and closing by themselves. The biggest incident happened one night when my parents were both awake in bed. They heard the footsteps again, and then their bedroom doors started opening and closing. They immediately ran upstairs, grabbed me from my attic bedroom and my little sister from her room, brought us into their bedroom, and all four of us watched the bedroom door repeatedly swing open and slam shut while the footsteps continue running up and down the stairs. My dad is a very skeptical, practical person who has never believed in ghosts or anything paranormal, but my mom says he's never forgotten that night because it terrified him too. Eventually, my mom contacted a friend who knew some people interested in the paranormal. They came to the house with what I remember as some sort of triangular device. I was only little, so I don't know exactly what it was. They said there was strong energy, particularly in the attic where my bedroom was. They performed some kind of cleansing or ritual. From that day onwards, everything stopped. No more footsteps, no more doors, no more washing machine incidents, nothing. It's now 25 years later, and none of us have ever experienced anything like that again. So I have a few questions. Has anyone experienced something similar? Is there any logical explanation that could account for all of this, especially multiple people witnessing the same events? If you believe in the paranormal, why would activity suddenly begin after living in the house for 18 months with nothing happening beforehand? Does anyone know what the triangular device they used might have been? I'm genuinely open-minded. I'm not saying this proves ghosts exist, but I know memories can become distorted over time. But this is how my family remembers it, and the fact it all stopped immediately after those people visited has always left me wondering. I'd love to hear both skeptical and paranormal perspectives. Alright, thanks for watching. If this video gets any views, please let me know what type of games you want me to play or what kind of stories you want me to read out. Thanks for watching.